standing outside the Cavs practice facility in Independence. I almost said Berea. Beautiful shot, beautiful day, Jason. And you just listened live to Koby Altman's end-of-season press conference. What was your big takeaway from Koby Altman's comments about how the Cavs season ended and JB Bickerstaff's dismissal?
I think Kobe's taken a lot of tap dance lessons in his life because he did everything he could to not explain why he had to fire the coach without saying why he had to fire the coach. It was funny to hear him. He said, you don't make a conference semifinal and say this doesn't work, but they fired the coach. He said you can't say this wasn't a successful season, and they fired the coach. So it kind of ran a little contradictory. The reason, it's the players. And, we talked about it on the show yesterday. He lost the locker room. And it's funny, Marcus Morris, I guess today came out and said basically that.
He did.
Sham said, did you guys play that? Did you play it on the
We've
Running
all
Back
heard
podcast?
it. We haven't played it.
We talked about it. We didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was there. So it just stands to reason, everything that we reported, which we already knew was true, he just confirmed it all. So that's why they had to move on from him, even though Kobe can't really come out and say that.
Jason, you and I had a brief conversation yesterday, and the one thing that we talked about was that the organization had to be very careful with how they handle this because Donovan Mitchell may wake up one day and say, you guys outed me. You guys should have had my back. And that was stuff that was internal laundry, and it got out, and I'm not happy, and I'm leaving. That's why Kobe did the tap dancing the tap dancing performance that he did today, correct?
Yeah, I actually put it on the tee for Kobe and said, did Donovan's contract status and did his views have any impact on this decision? And I felt it was an opportunity for Kobe to say, he said no. That's all he said. He just said no. And I kind of put it on the tee for him. It was for all the trouble that me and the Athletic has caused for you, here's an opportunity. You can dunk on me. You can hit it down the fairway. And he didn't really take it because I thought that was a good opportunity for him to come out and say, this was my decision. Donovan has nothing but respect for JB. He's played the best basketball of his career under JB. This was my decision and my decision alone. And instead, he just answered it no, which is fine.
He's basically
he can answer however he wants.
He's basically picking his poison there, right? He's damned if he does. Either way, you can be critical of him.
No, I just thought there was a way to be a little bit stronger in defending Donovan on that. Ultimately, everything we're hearing is he will re-sign. He is going to re-sign. We won't know that for certain until July. So you have to navigate this coaching search now. Obviously you're going to probably want his input on that. And the one thing Kobe did say today is at his exit meeting, Donovan kept talking about the future, which obviously is an encouraging sign. Doesn't mean he's for certain staying, but certainly that's a positive, not a negative, that he's talking about a future here. And everything that we've been told for the last number of weeks is that he probably is going to resign.
Jason, did Koby Altman allude to the reason why it took 8 or 9 days to actually finally move on from JB Bickerstaff? And did he speak to what that conversation was like with JB once they actually had it?
Didn't really go into details what the conversation was like. They never really do. He pointed out the logistics of the fact that, Kobe was trying to bounce back and forth between Chicago and Boston during the conference semis for the combine. And then there was the pro workouts in LA with a bunch of the agencies that rep a bunch of the top draft prospects. They gather in LA. So Kobe had been in LA most of this week after the Cavs were eliminated for that. So logistically it was hard. And he said, he didn't want it to be an emotional decision. And he talked about the deep respect that he has for JB and the entire organization had. And it felt like, it's not a decision that you can make emotionally in the moment, that they needed to step back and have conversations with JB about it, which they did. And then come to a conclusion from there. So it probably, it definitely went a little bit longer than I thought it would by a couple of days. I kind of thought it was going to be a little bit earlier in the week, but because of the logistics of Kobe being in LA, I kind of understood it as well.
Jason, you had a gut feeling on this a couple of days ago. What's your gut feeling on Darius Garland? It feels like, is that the next move to on the front, or is it Jarrett Allen, or did he ever allude to any other players on the roster besides Donovan Mitchell?
Koby was adamant that he does not see a reason to break this up and to make any moves. And we talked about that on the show. I had said that that's what I had gotten prior to Game 7 of the Orlando series was, hey, even if we lose this series, we're bringing this back. We want to bring this back as is. Now, other people may have thoughts outside of that. I stand by the reporting that we wrote last week that if Donovan re-signs, Rich Paul may have a conversation with Koby about trying to get Darius out of here. And so, where does that lead? Does that lead to Koby saying, no, we're not trading him. He's under contract and we're keeping him. We like him. He's a valuable piece to what we do. Koby rolled out all the advanced numbers today of they're a net positive of around 5 between the two of them when they're on the floor together, Donovan and Darius. In terms of the front court, he defended Jarrett as you would expect him to, and said he could not play through what he experienced, that he had a fractured rib. It went from a contusion to today they called it a fracture. And then he went back to pierced on the language. So the language, it is what it is. But, again, we wrote last week about how there was just people who were frustrated and felt like Jarrett didn't do everything possible to get back on the court. And Marcus Morris today said the exact same thing. Marcus, on that same podcast that Shams was on and Chandler Parsons was on, Marcus, who just got here in March, said if it were him, he would have played. And they knew that he was in pain, and they understood because of the Orlando series. Marcus understood because of the pain he was in during the Orlando series, but Marcus was a little bit surprised that he couldn't come back for the Boston series. So again, everything that we wrote was true, guys.
No, we didn't. I didn't doubt any of it.
I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you guys. Yeah, but I'm just saying, Jason, when you hear some of this stuff, you're like, "Wow, how can that possibly be true?"
No,
well, it was.
Well, it's all been proven to be true. I have a question for you before we let you go. We chewed on this topic. Koby is staying, or he wouldn't have had this news conference today. He was one of the questions going into the offseason. Did Dan make the right call in bringing Koby back? Had he done enough to deserve another year?
Koby's done a nice job of drafting and developing pieces that are talented basketball players. Whether or not they all fit, he's adamant that they are, or they deserve more time together. And we'll see how the rest of the offseason plays out. We'll see if they do try and get Darius out of here, if his representation tries to force a move to get him out, and how the Cavs respond to that. We'll see how Jarrett responds to some of the, our reporting, and now hearing what Marcus said on the podcast. That can be damaging to a player. And Koby said there's no damage to the relationship between Jarrett and the organization. So, we'll see. But, Dan is not Dan anymore. I've said it a million times. This is not the same Dan of the championship years and pre-stroke. So everybody gets a lot longer of a leash than they used to, which is not a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I just thought that they moved on from people too quick, and the volatility around here was just asinine, frankly. So I think Koby will have an opportunity now to see this through. And depending on, I think this is a critical summer. I'm not convinced that all 4 of these pieces will be back next year. I don't think it behooves him to say that. It takes away negotiating leverage if you come out and say, we probably have to make a move here.
Yeah,
that's right. Do that. And so you have to stay strong in negotiations. You have to create as much leverage as you can. I understand him saying everything he had to say. I thought he did his best to protect the organization. It was just funny. We fire the coach and then say that it was a successful season. Well, most successful seasons wind up with coaches sticking around. So he had some dancing to do, but ultimately he was just trying to protect the organization today. And the summer will bear out. We'll let all this stuff play out over the summer.
Yeah.
We'll see if Darius is still here in September. We'll see if Jarrett is still here in September. We'll see the contract that Evan Mobley signs, if he signs an extension this summer, what that looks like. There's a lot of questions facing this organization.
It's going to be an eventful offseason. We're chasing our 12:30 WKYC slot. So 5 seconds here. On a 1 to 10, how much are your shoulders burning from doing the pass off?
Yeah, I see.
Believe it or not, I do work out, but it's been a challenge, guys. I need a tripod.
Much respect, bro. Much respect,
We'll see you, brother.